Did Donald Trump actually woo the late Princess Diana, who he reportedly considered to be the ultimate trophy wife? The shocking claim is being made by British TV host Selena Scott.
I liked her. I met her in New York once standing on line, and we were all shaking hands.
Donald Trump's pursuit of Princess Diana wasn't a quiet or respectful admiration. It was a series of bold, uncomfortable moves that drew attention then and still spark debate today. She was the world's most photographed woman, navigating life after a high-profile divorce. He was a businessman used to getting what he wanted. Their brief encounter set off actions that left those around Diana uneasy and questioning Trump's motives. What began as a polite introduction soon became something harder to ignore. The story of what followed isn't about romance, it's about boundaries, perception, and a pattern that says more about Trump's approach to women than it ever did about Diana. What really happened between Trump and Diana? The details might surprise you. The first encounter. Their first encounter took place at the 1995 United Cerebral Palsy Humanitarian Dinner in New York City. It was a high-profile event attended by dignitaries, celebrities, and philanthropists, but for Donald Trump, one guest in particular commanded all of his attention: Princess Diana. The newly single princess, then one of the most photographed women in the world, captivated the room. By all accounts, Diana brought her usual grace, charm, and quiet charisma to the evening, representing causes close to her heart. Trump was introduced to her during this event, and it was this brief interaction that planted the seed for what would become his awkward and one-sided pursuit. According to Trump's own later reflections, this first meeting left a lasting impression. In his 1997 book, The Art of the Comeback, he described Diana as a dream lady and a genuine princess. He noted how she lit up the room with her presence, making no secret of the fact that he was immediately drawn to her. Trump admitted in the book that his greatest regret in the women department was that he never had the opportunity to court her.
Writing in his 1997 book, Trump, The Art of the Comeback, I only have one regret in the women department, that I never had the opportunity to court Lady Diana Spencer. She was a genuine princess, a dream lady.
Though the meeting was fleeting, it seems to have been magnified in Trump's memory, taking on an outsized importance that would fuel his later comments and behavior. It is unclear whether Diana viewed the encounter as anything more than a routine greeting at a charity event. There is no public record of her expressing any particular impression of Trump at the time of the dinner. For Diana, the evening was likely just another engagement on a busy schedule of public appearances. But for Trump, that brief interaction appeared to create a sense of possibility, or at least fantasy, about a deeper connection that was never there. This disparity between Trump's perception and Diana's silence on the matter would define the dynamic going forward. The charity gala marked the starting point of Trump's fixation. From that night onward, he would speak about Diana with a mix of admiration and ambition, framing their meeting as the beginning of something that, in reality, never was. Whether Trump truly believed there had been a spark, or whether he exaggerated the significance for public consumption, remains a question. What is certain is that this initial encounter laid the groundwork for the unwanted gestures and inappropriate boasts that would follow. What came next turned a chance meeting into something far harder for Diana to ignore: Trump's persistent and unwanted gifts. Following that first brief meeting at the charity gala, Donald Trump began a campaign of grand gestures aimed at Princess Diana, the most visible of which was sending enormous bouquets of flowers to her residence at Kensington Palace. Reports describe deliveries of massive arrangements filled with roses and orchids, arriving uninvited and unreciprocated. This approach mirrored Trump's earlier tactic when he first courted his ex-wife Ivana, suggesting a formula he believed would impress or win over Diana. But where Ivana may have responded to such displays, Diana reportedly did not.
As the roses and orchids piled up at her apartment, she became increasingly concerned about what she should do.
The volume and frequency of these floral gifts quickly became a source of discomfort for the princess. According to Selena Scott, a close friend of Diana's and a former BBC journalist, the flowers piled up to the point that they felt intrusive. Scott later wrote that Diana found herself unsure of how to respond. especially given Trump's persistence. It was clear that what Trump saw as generosity and charm, Diana experienced as overwhelming and inappropriate attention. This was not a fleeting gesture. The deliveries became a repeated reminder of his unwanted pursuit. What's particularly telling is that these gifts arrived during a time when Diana was trying to establish independence and stability following her divorce from Prince Charles. She was under intense media scrutiny and attempting to rebuild her life on her terms. Trump's unsolicited gestures cut against that effort, inserting himself into her private world in a way that felt invasive. While it is unclear if Trump understood the effect his actions had, the result was that Diana grew increasingly uneasy with his attention. The bouquets, far from flattering her, became symbols of an interest she did not share. Trump's behavior raises questions about whether he misread the situation entirely or simply chose to ignore the signals of disinterest. Diana's discomfort was so pronounced that she confided in Scott, admitting that Trump gave her the creeps. The floral deliveries meant to charm, instead highlighted the stark gap between Trump's fantasy of courting Diana and the reality of how his attention was received. These gestures, rather than opening doors, served only to reinforce Diana's desire to distance herself from him. The stalker-like pursuit.
There is some information that's potentially damaging. That's all I'm going to say about it.
That's linked to Diana.
As Trump's floral deliveries continued without encouragement or acknowledgement from Princess Diana, her discomfort deepened. The scale and persistence of the gestures left Diana increasingly uneasy, and she sought guidance from someone she trusted. During a private dinner with Selena Scott, the former BBC journalist and close friend of the princess, Diana confided her concern. She reportedly asked, "What am I going to do?" revealing how the unwanted attention from Trump had begun to weigh on her. For a woman accustomed to navigating public scrutiny, the fact that she raised this in private underlined the seriousness of her unease. Scott's advice was both simple and practical. She encouraged Diana to dispose of the bouquets without further thought. "Just throw them in the bin," she reportedly suggested. This direct response seemed to offer Diana some relief, as it gave her permission to disregard the unwanted advances without guilt or obligation. Diana reportedly laughed at the suggestion, appreciating the clarity it provided. But behind the humor was a genuine discomfort at being subjected to attention that felt intrusive and increasingly difficult to manage. Trump's gestures, framed as generosity in his mind, were in fact a source of stress for Diana, and the situation was becoming harder for her to ignore. What made the situation more troubling for those close to Diana was the pattern that appeared to be emerging. The persistence of the gifts, paired with Trump's apparent disregard for any signals of disinterest, started to feel less like harmless flattery and more like an attempt to impose himself on Diana's life. Among friends and confidants, there was growing concern that his behavior bordered on stalking. The repeated, large-scale deliveries, with no relationship or invitation to justify them, created an atmosphere that made Diana feel watched and pursued at a time when she sought peace and privacy. It was the last thing she needed as she worked to rebuild her life post-divorce. The perception that Trump's attention had crossed a line wasn't just about the flowers, it was about the refusal to respect boundaries. Trump's repeated, unsolicited gestures fed the impression that he viewed Diana not as a person but as a prize to be won, regardless of her feelings. In the end, the situation left Diana feeling unsettled and imposed upon, a stark contrast to the image of admiration and respect that Trump publicly projected. Public claims of romantic possibility.
I believe, and this story's been written, that Donald Trump was fascinated with Princess Diana and wanted to date her, as did a lot of rich men around the world.
Donald Trump's pursuit of Princess Diana did not end with grand gestures. After her death in 1997, Trump repeatedly spoke publicly about his belief that he could have dated the princess. In his book The Art of the Comeback, published that same year, Trump described his failure to court Diana as his one regret in the women department. He framed Diana as the ultimate trophy wife, a phrase that revealed more about his view of relationships than it did about any real connection with her. This was not a passing comment. Trump seemed intent on crafting a narrative where, had circumstances been different, he and Diana could have been together. In interviews and public statements, Trump suggested that he saw himself as having had a genuine chance with Diana, particularly after her divorce from Prince Charles. He spoke as if the opportunity had been within reach, despite there being no evidence that Diana shared or encouraged this belief. His comments blurred the line between fantasy and reality, feeding the idea that he imagined himself as a viable suitor for the most famous woman in the world. Whether this was bravado, wishful thinking, or deliberate self-promotion, it reflected a pattern of Trump presenting hypothetical conquests as if they were plausible outcomes. The language Trump used in these boasts revealed his mindset. Describing Diana as a potential prize rather than a person with autonomy, he often referred to her beauty and status, rather than any meaningful qualities or shared values. His characterization of her as the dream lady and genuine princess seemed less about who Diana was and more about how she fit into his ideal of a perfect partner. The repeated framing of Diana as a missed opportunity reinforced the impression that Trump saw women in terms of what they could represent for him publicly, rather than as individuals. Trump's claims about Diana added to the controversy that has long surrounded his comments on women. His public remarks, particularly so soon after Diana's death, drew criticism for their tone and timing. What might have been left as private regret became instead a recurring talking point in his media appearances and writings. The gap between his boasts and the reality of Diana's known discomfort with his attention underscored just how detached these claims were from the truth of their limited interactions. For Trump, it seemed, the idea of having courted Diana served as a useful story, one that kept his name linked to hers, whether or not it reflected any reality. And just when you think the claims couldn't get stranger, the radio mic made it worse. The Stern Show. Donald Trump's public remarks about Princess Diana reached a low point during his radio appearances on The Howard Stern Show. In 1997, just months after Diana's tragic death in Paris, Trump appeared on Stern's program and made comments that many found distasteful and inappropriate. When Stern pressed Trump about whether he believed he could have been romantically involved with Diana, Trump responded, "I think I could have." The casual and self-congratulatory tone struck many as shocking, given the timing and context. The fact that he spoke this way so soon after her passing reflected the gap between Trump's public persona and widely accepted standards of decency. The conversation didn't stop at mere boasting. In that 1997 interview, Stern and Trump joked through a hypothetical scenario where Trump would have required Diana to get tested for HIV before any intimacy. Trump played along, adding that he would have sent her to his doctor and given her a little checkup. These comments, aired so publicly and with apparent ease, fueled criticism that Trump treated Diana's memory with disrespect. Rather than honoring her legacy, he turned the subject of the late princess into material for crude banter, disregarding the grief still fresh for her family, friends, and the public. Trump returned to this topic again in 2000 during another appearance on Stern's show. By then, 3 years had passed since Diana's death, yet Trump continued to speak about her as though she were part of some personal fantasy narrative. When asked again whether he would have slept with Diana, Trump replied, without even hesitation. He doubled down on his earlier remarks, reinforcing the perception that he was comfortable turning Diana's name and image into part of his running commentary on women he found attractive. It seemed less about any real connection to Diana, and more about projecting an image of himself as desirable and capable of winning over any woman, even one no longer alive to refute his claims. During these appearances, Trump also ranked Diana on his personal list of the most attractive women. He placed her third, behind his ex-wife Ivana and his then-girlfriend Melania. These remarks fit a broader pattern of Trump objectifying women in public forums. The way he spoke about Diana, as if she were just another name in his catalog of hottest women, only deepened the discomfort many felt about his comments. The princess, remembered for her compassion and dignity, became instead a prop in Trump's self-aggrandizing dialogue. What she really thought of Trump. Donald Trump often spoke of his encounters with Princess Diana as if they were filled with possibility, but accounts from Diana's life suggest a far different perspective. the clearest insight came from her brother, Earl Charles Spencer. In 2023, Trump claimed Diana had wanted to kiss his ass while promoting a book of supposed private letters from celebrities and public figures. Spencer's response was swift and biting. He said that the one time Diana mentioned Trump, she described him as worse than an anal fissure. That remark left little doubt about how Diana truly felt about Trump and his repeated efforts to link himself to her name. Those who knew Diana during her lifetime reinforced this view. Reports indicated she became uncomfortable when Trump tried to use her name and image to promote his real estate projects in New York. Already navigating intense public scrutiny, Diana reportedly saw Trump's opportunism as yet another violation of her privacy. The sense that she was being used as a marketing tool by someone she barely knew only deepened her unease. Diana's well-documented comment that Trump gave her the creeps summed up her reaction to his attention. While Trump praised her beauty and status, often in ways that objectified her, Diana seemed to see through the flattery. Her concerns were not about vanity, but about his disregard for boundaries and respect. The image Trump tried to project, of himself as someone Diana might have welcomed, was not one she shared. In the end, Diana's view of Trump stood in sharp contrast to his public narrative. Where Trump imagined himself as a figure Diana could have admired or desired, Diana wanted nothing beyond formal courtesy. The disconnect between Trump's fantasy and Diana's reality remains one of the most unsettling parts of this story. Even after Diana was gone, the story took a turn that kept her name tied to his. The aftermath: Trump's ongoing obsession. Donald Trump's fixation on Princess Diana didn't fade after her death in 1997. For years, he continued to reference her in books, interviews, and public appearances, making sure his name stayed connected to hers. In these remarks, Trump spoke as if Diana had been a significant figure in his life, despite their limited and one-sided interactions. He often repeated the same points: regret over not dating her, admiration for her appearance, and speculation about what might have been. Rather than allowing Diana's memory to rest, Trump seemed to use her name to promote himself. A clear example came when Trump announced a forthcoming book that would feature letters he claimed to have received from world leaders, celebrities, and other public figures. Among those he mentioned was Princess Diana. The suggestion that Diana had written admiring letters to him sparked backlash. Earl Spencer, Diana's brother, dismissed the claim, making it clear that Diana had no fondness for Trump and would not have written him anything of the sort. Many saw this as yet another attempt by Trump to exploit Diana's name for attention. Trump's references to Diana fit a broader pattern in how he discussed women in the public eye. By repeatedly tying himself to her image, he reinforced the perception that he saw Diana and other famous women as symbols of status rather than as real people. His persistence, despite clear signs that Diana did not welcome his attention, added to the unease around his remarks. Even decades later, Trump's willingness to invoke Diana's name in ways that misrepresented her feelings kept this uncomfortable chapter alive. Instead of fading into history, his comments ensured that his pursuit of Diana would remain a point of criticism and scrutiny. So, what do you think? Was Trump's plan to win over Princess Diana bold ambition or just pure delusion? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more stories like this, and don't forget to check out one of the 2 videos now on your screen. Thanks for watching.